Bradley Wiggins starts today's stage in the yellow jersey, while Alejandro Valverde, yesterday's winner, gets the green jersey on his shoulders. The riders moving away this morning from Brive-la-Gaillarde, which means bridge, by the way, in the Celtic language. Next, stage 4. All the main contenders charge into the last few kilometres looking for glory on the slopes around the Lac de Vassivière. Alejandro Valverde showed why he is the master of this kind of hilltop sprint with a well-timed win. Aussie Simon Gerrans came within inches of stealing away the Spaniard's glory, but it's tough to outwit a wily cat. Bradley Wiggins stays at the top in yellow, but almost predicts his impending loss of the lead.
If we lose the jersey, we lose the jersey, to be honest. These next couple of days, we'll try and control it as best as possible, but, you know, there's a strong possibility we're going to lose the jersey in the next few days.
We'll find out next on Stage 4 what happens as we go deeper into France for the NBC Sports Network's coverage of the 2012 Paris-Nice. Hello and welcome to the Epic Cycle Series presented by Michelob Ultra. We leave the Lac de Vassivière behind us on Stage 4 of Paris-Nice. We move away from Brive-la-Gaillarde on the road to Rodez, a distance of 178 kilometres, 120 miles. I'm Paul Sherwin, alongside me is Bob Roll, and today I have to say, Bob, whenever a race comes into this part of France, you can expect fireworks.
The Massif Central features small roads, bad pavement, and lots of climbs, undulating throughout the day. These are very tough stages for what has already been a tough Paris-Nice. Battered and fatigued bodies will be all over the road today. It's going to be a great stage.
It will be a great stage. It will be unpredictable. It will be exciting. And I can tell you for the moment, there's a 5-man breakaway off the front of the race. But the man in the yellow jersey at the start of the day, the overall leader, Bradley Wiggins, is looking very comfortable indeed in that yellow jersey, despite the fact he only has a 6-second advantage over Levi Leipheimer, the American, on Omega Pharma Quickstep, and TJ Van Garderen, American, also up there in third place, looking for just 11 seconds. However, Alejandro Valverde, with that win yesterday, moves up into 6th place at 20 seconds, is now starting to look like a very serious threat to the overall lead. So let's have a look at the race route here this afternoon. Fairly easy to start off with, Bob, but when you get to the middle part of the race, ouch.
Category 2 to start the proceedings for the climbing jersey. A lot of points up for grabs in that competition, and that could spell doom for the peloton to stay together. This is going to be an incredibly difficult stage. Category 2s, 2 of those. 3 Category 3s. There's a sprint point towards the end of the bike race. 110.5 miles to Rodez, one of the famous towns featured many years in the Tour de France.
Yes, and Rodez made very famous by its Cathedral of Notre Dame de Rodez, with one of the highest clock towers in France at over 300 feet in altitude. The race will be hot today, it will be exciting, and I have a feeling it's going to be rather unpredictable. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be right into the heat of the action. As we move along the road from Brive-la-Gaillarde down towards the finishing line of Rodez, there's a 5-man breakaway which got clear after just 6 kilometres of racing. The riders in that break: Jean-Christophe Perrault of France, Peric Federigo, Lee Howard of Australia, Louis Matte of the Cofidis team from Spain, and Bart de Clercq making the 5-man leading group. They built themselves a maximum advantage at one stage of 5 minutes and 20 seconds. But as we can see now, at 47 kilometres to go, we're now looking at inside of the 2-minute margin. There's a lot of work being done at the front end of the main field by Team Rabobank, and also team of Damiano Cunego, their Team Lampre as well. And that, I think, is because they want to pull this breakaway back down before the very end, as today's stage is certainly another kind of stage finish for Cunego, Damiano Cunego, and of course Alejandro Valverde. There is the yellow jersey on the shoulders of Bradley Wiggins. Now, yesterday we saw something very, very interesting, which we don't see too often. Bradley Wiggins actually warming down, Bob, at the end of that stage. Now, I spoke to Sean Yates about that. He said, when you go to track racing, you see that as very much part of the course. It happens an awful lot, but it just goes to show how seriously Bradley Wiggins is taking this bike race to actually warm down at the end of a road stage.
Most certainly, it's a tough transition physically to go from a 100% effort on a hard climb to finish the stage to absolutely standing still and waiting for the podium. It's a good idea to have a little bit of a warm down, and Bradley Wiggins is leaving nothing to chance so far this year in Paris-Nice, doing that little warm down on the Traber. Logistically, it's tough, but for the overall standings, maybe that'll make a big difference at the end of the week's racing.
Logistically, it's a nightmare. That's what Sean Yates said this morning, to organise things like that. But they're not just thinking here, Bob, of Paris-Nice. They're thinking of further down the year as well. And Bradley Wiggins' assault of victory at the Tour de France. The weather, 46 degrees Fahrenheit this afternoon at 9 miles an hour. The wind, partly cloudy. I would say it's an ideal situation for a bike race here in the middle of France. There's been a change in the King of the Mountains classification because Luis Angel Mate, the Spanish rider on Team Cofidis, has gone over the top of all of the climbs in first place so far to amass 18 points. So he's the new leader in that competition, just ahead of De Klerk of Belgium.
A lot to be gained by going in a breakaway on today's stage. There are 5 climbs out on the race course, 2 category 2s, 3 category 3s. A lot of times we talk about the breakaway inevitably getting caught. Well, that's not particularly the circumstances of today's stage. Because of the tough climbs, the peloton will break up. Also, a lot to ride for. Even if you do get caught before the finish line, there's a sprint point, and like I said, those 5 climbs out on the race course. So the polka dot jersey, as long as Thomas de Gent, who's leading that competition, is not in the breakaway with you, you have a lot to gain at the end of the day. And having that polka dot jersey is a great result, even if it's just for one day on any of these prestigious stage races.
Yes, well, we've been over 3 of the 5 climbs of the day. Still 2 more to come down towards the very end as we get into the outskirts of Rodez. But this cool weather at the start of the season, Bob, I think has started to affect 1 or 2 of the riders. In fact, Team Radio Shack Nissan Trek have lost 2 riders this morning to gastroenteritis. Jan Bakalant and Joost Postuma, 2 riders from that American squad. The American Taylor Phinney from BMC Racing, he also had to pull out. And Lotto have lost 2 riders as well because of this illness, which seems to be going right the way through the main field, with Olivier Kaizen and Adam Hansen, the big tough Australian, also not coming out to start this morning.
Well, you get a low-grade intestinal virus. It temporarily ruins your digestion. But when you're in a bike racer, you depend on being at 100% of your physical capacity. So walking around in a normal day-to-day life, that type of thing wouldn't bother you too much. But when you're in a very tough bike race like Paris-Nice, or especially the Tour de France, a lot of guys do have to drop out of the stage races because of that ailment. Even though it's not serious, for the moment it's tough, and you can't even pedal your bike hardly, let alone get up in the morning to race again.
Well, when we were at the front end of the main field there, Bob, you might have noticed the orange jerseys doing a lot of pacemaking. That's Team Rabobank, and they have said today that because of the great performance yesterday of Luis Leon Sanchez, they feel that today's running towards a finish is the sort of finish that will suit Sanchez. That's why they're trying to pull back this leading group of 5 riders, and to good effect too, because that leading group of 5 at one stage in excess of 5 minutes over the main field. It's now down to 1 minute and 43 seconds.
Well, Luis Leon Sanchez had a serious dig at yesterday's finish line. He was beaten by Alejandro Valverde. He took a quick look over his shoulder, saw Valverde coming, pulled the pin. He should be fresh today, and he did show good legs on yesterday's stage. Luis Leon Sanchez looking for something for the Rabobank team that missed out on that big breakaway on stage number 2, and they need some results.
Well, we're looking on the far side in that white jersey of FDJ Big Matt. This is Peric Federico, former national champion of France. He's a stage winner at the Tour de France, and that was 2 years ago, Bob, in 2010. But last year, he had a very, very nasty attack of Lyme disease, and he seems to be riding himself back into the form that he had 2 years ago, when in fact he beat Lance Armstrong on a stage of the Tour de France. As we see the main field now going harder and harder into the heart of the Aveyron department of France, and we're looking at the back end of the main field. We'll take a short break. When we come back, there'll be lots more action from the roads of Paris-Nice. Tomorrow, the Epic Cycle Series presented by Michelob Ultra continues with Stage 5 of Paris-Nice. Several grueling first category climbs along the route, and a mountaintop finish is not to be missed tomorrow at 4:30 Eastern Time on the NBC Sports Network. Getting the latest time gap there from the blackboard at the side of the road. 1 minute and 30 seconds advantage with 41.5 kilometers to go. That's 26 miles of racing left. It's a very cool, brisk day out there. The green edge jersey that you can just see there, that's the new Australian team, Bob. The team that's been put together for the next 3 years. And that young man there, by the way, Lee Howard, in fact, currently the world Madison champion. Madison, a track event named after, of course, Madison Square Gardens.
Lee Howard, one of the most versatile track riders of all time. 3 world titles on the track. He's trying to make the transition over to road racing. He's joined Green Edge, a brand new team from Australia, and it'll be great to watch their progress throughout the year.
Started off the season with a bang and their victory in the Santos Tour Down Under, where on that occasion Simon Gerrans, second on yesterday's stage, won the race overall ahead of a certain Alejandro Valverde, who won yesterday's stage. And in fact, the team Movistar, Bob, is starting to talk now about Alejandro Valverde as being a possible winner of Paris-Nice overall.
Valverde entertaining hopes of winning this race overall. He starts the stage only 20 seconds behind the race leader, Bradley Wiggins. It's unbelievable how good Alejandro Valverde has been so far after a long suspension out of the sport without racing, but he's very focused. He trains incredibly hard, exceptionally diligent throughout his suspension. He did all the training required, and he's returned immediately almost of racing again to the very highest level of the sport. Alejandro Valverde, according to his team manager, a class act.
Very dedicated. That was a 2-year suspension, but it wasn't actually in force until halfway through 2010. So he actually had 18 months away from competition, and he came right back to the top of the sport with a bang. You can see now at the front of the peloton there, well, briefly at the front of the peloton, Bob, a lot of those teams are now looking for a bit of individual glory today. I don't see today's stage as being a stage for the sprinters because it's such a hard run in towards the finishing line. And again, chatting with Sean Yates before the start, again, these team managers, they get out the maps overnight, they get out Google Earth, and he was actually able to figure out that the penultimate climb of the day is a very nasty climb at around about 7.5%, a good launch pad for a breakaway.
A good launch pad for a little breakaway, and perhaps that's why this breakaway has never been allowed to have that much time in advantage. They're down to just 1 minute and 32 seconds with 40 kilometers to go, so still 25 miles left in the bike race, but a very slim margin for this breakaway. It's going to be very tough for them to stay away at this point.
Well, number 56 in the red jersey of Cofidis there. He's the new leader in the King of the Mountains classification. He's laid down some serious foundations to try and win that competition overall with 5 climbs out on the course today. We've already covered 3 of them, 2 more to go. There he is. That's Luis Angel Mate. His nickname, by the way, is the Andalusian Lynx because he likes to pounce out of the main field and get himself a victory.
Well, he has got maximum points so far for the King of the Mountain competition. So Luis Mate, if the status quo stayed the same, he would be awarded the polka dot jersey at the end of today's stage. Interesting to see Bart de Klerk from the Lotto team also in the breakaway. This guy didn't start bike racing till he was 22 years of age. He had already graduated from college, and he took up cycling as a cyclist sportif, as a tourist, a guy that goes on the countryside, does some camping trips and rides for a few days on the bicycle just as recreation. He found he had a real affinity for the bicycle, turned professional, and he's already won a stage of the Giro d'Italia. That was an incredible result for a rider nobody had ever heard of, and they thought he was the brother or perhaps cousin of Mario de Klerk, the world champion from cyclocross. No relation. Bart de Klerk, a great cyclist in his own right.
Well, just having a quick look, that's Matty Lloyd on the front there for Team Lampre. Yeah, he's a rider trying to ride himself back into the sport as well. A man who had a very, very nasty accident a couple of seasons ago, trying to get himself to the top of the sport, and he's joined Team Lampre. Lampre have given him the confidence to use races like Paris-Nice to build himself back up to be the great climber that he may well be in the month of May at the Giro d'Italia, a former winner of the King of the Mountains classification in the Giro d'Italia. The 5 men leading this race now are starting to see their advantage chipped away at all of the time because there are some big teams on the front end of the main field. Don't want the 5 men to survive. We'll take another break. Back in the heart of the action here, the 5 leaders who've been at the front of this bike race since the 6th kilometre of this 178-kilometre race this afternoon, or 110 miles. They're now approaching the sprint point in the small town of Saint-Cyprien-sur-Dordoue. I have to say, Bob, there's a little move there now. It's not a surprise to see that acceleration because Lee Howard is a great sprinter.
Lee Howard will be uncontested for this sprint. He'll get maximum points in the town of Saint Cyprien sur Doudon. Saint Cyprien from Carthage, one of the very first Christians in the history of mankind, and this town named after him.
Well, just looking at that acceleration, Bob, but let's not forget that the man who leads the points classification at the start this morning was the winner of yesterday's stage, Alejandro Valverde. He would quite possibly like to change that green jersey of the most consistent rider so far for a yellow one by the end of today, because with this kind of finish, again, it's the sort of finish that Alejandro Valverde shines on.
Valverde 20 seconds behind in the overall standings to get a time bonus of 10 seconds at the finish line and a little bit of a gap from Bradley Wiggins. It's not impossible that Valverde could have the jersey already on today's stage, but it's going to be a lot of racing before the end of Paris-Nice, and perhaps a lot of change in the yellow jersey before we get to the end.
Well, 22 years of age, that young man, number 44 there, Lee Howard, and no stranger to the top end of the overall standings of races. In fact, a couple of years ago, he won himself the Tour of Gippsland in the northern part of Europe. As we see one of the top teams in the world here, Team Rabobank, doing the pacemaking. One of the teams we've seen an awful lot of since the very start of Paris-Nice this year, of course, is Team Sky. And that's why this afternoon we've decided to award them the Road ID Athlete Profile, all about the team from Great Britain.
The thing about cycling is, like, you've got such high moments and low moments.
The amount of different emotions you feel, and you feel it with the same people, you know, it's something that can't be replicated. It's what makes cycling so special.
Absolutely ready. It's like I never trained so hard before. We all know it's like Olympic Games in London for a British team. That's like probably the biggest thing.
The Spring Classics are huge for me. It's part of the season that I really enjoy, I really like. And, you know, the Belgian and French crowds are crazy for it, so it's just great to be there. Just racing on the cobbles, the unpredictable weather. It's just a lot more about physical ability, and yeah, it's just amazing.
For me, the classics are important, like also for the team. The Giro d'Italia is important. Welcome to modern cycling. Every race is important.
It's been the hardest winter I've done ever, and you know, it's all with one goal in mind and trying to be as good as possible in July.
Big hits really are San Remo, Ghent-Wevelgem, you know, and then rolling on to the Tour and the Olympics. So, I mean, obviously we're going to target the Giro as well for stage wins is going to be the main thing early on, because I just think that final week is really quite tough. The Tour and Olympics will be a big hit.
A question I get asked a lot: do you enjoy climbs? I do enjoy climbing, you know. Well, in training I do. Racing not so much, but neither do the guys who are going fast up them. Everybody's suffering on a climb. It's probably more important I train for climbing than I do for sprinting, because whereas sprinting comes quite naturally, climbing, that's where the races are won or lost, really.
The big ones to get into the Tour team and, you know, support Bradley, I guess. But you know, then I look at races like Romandy and Paris-Nice, and I mean, it's an exciting season.
It's always been my goal to develop into a GC rider, and I think the Vuelta last year showed that it is something that's within my reach. It's not just some far-off dream.
The feeling is amongst the rider group that, you know, we're on the edge of something brilliant. You know, it's a solid rider group, and you know, it's quite a tight-knit little team.
So that was our Road ID Athlete Profile, Team Sky. I have to say, Bob, they've been around for a long time now. This is their third year. In the first season, they were severely criticised, but year on year, they've built themselves up to be one of the top teams in the world.
And they've also signed up the fastest man on the planet, Mark Cavendish. One wonders a little bit if they will be spread too thin. Bradley Wiggins wants to win the yellow jersey in the Tour de France. Mark Cavendish wants to win the green and stages. Mark Cavendish is charismatic, perhaps the most eloquent of all the cyclists, and the very fastest sprinter. So we'll see how Team Sky does throughout the year. It's going to be a great story to follow.
They've got to be happy with the situation here at 33 kilometres and 19 miles of racing left to go, because other teams are doing the pacemaking at the front to pull back that leading group of 5 riders. Here we're looking into the face here of Peric Federigo. We had said that he was a long way down in the overall standings. He started the day in 113th place, looking for 11 minutes and 46 seconds. None of the riders in the breakaway, Bob, closer than 10 minutes to the overall lead. So theoretically, they could allow this breakaway to go clear and it would not affect the race. But I have a feeling Damiano Cunego, Alejandro Valverde, a lot of those guys with their kind of finishing spurt on a climb are looking for a victory again today.
I think stage number 2's crosswind battles are still stinging a little bit, and until Rabobank or Lamprey wins a stage, they'll still be chasing one. The breakaway, probably no chance on today's stage.
Well, 5 men hoping to survive on the road down into Rodez. I wonder if they'll make it. We'll find out. A couple of thousand kilometres away from France. In Italy, in fact, today is the start of Tirreno Adriatico, and the fastest team in the team time trial this afternoon was the Australian squad, Green Edge Cycling, getting themselves the victory and also getting the first overall leaders jersey, and that goes onto the shoulders of Matthew Goss, obviously fine-tuning his preparation, Bob, for Milano Sanremo.
Matthew Harley Goss gets the first leader's jersey because his team was so fantastic in the team time trial. Great ride by the new squad, Green Edge.
Don't forget, you can watch Tirreno Adriatico every day on Universal Sports at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Looking at the front end of the main field, I have to say, Bob, a nice day for Team Sky, taking a back seat today and letting all of the other teams do the pacemaking. Obviously, Damiano Cunego, you can just see him to the right-hand side there. He's got a lime green bike. He has a slightly different bike to the rest of the guys in his squad, as we now see also Bauke Mollema. Obviously, the nod going forward for Team Rabobank, Luis Leon Sanchez. Could he be the candidate today?
Luis Leon Sanchez looking for some results here in Paris-Nice. He was very close on yesterday's stage, losing out to his countryman and former teammate Alejandro Valverde, but Rabobank, they missed out on that big split in the field, those 21 riders on stage number 2 that have so far defined the overall standings in this year's Paris-Nice. Both Lamprey, who we saw on front, the team of Damiano Cunego, and Rabobank at the front, they want to catch this breakaway and give their team leaders, that would be Damiano Cunego, the small Italian on the Lamprey squad, and of course Luis Leon Sanchez, who we just mentioned on Rabobank, but they have to catch the breakaway first.
Now I wonder, Bob, I also saw the Australian national champion moving to the front as well. There's Simon Guerin, second on the stage yesterday, maybe inspired by his team's performance a little bit further over the continent in Italy, and that win by Green Edge this afternoon in the team time trial.
Success breeds success in cycling. Maybe there's a little bit of professional jealousy involved in that, but it always seems to happen that when your teammates start winning, it gives you a little bit extra motivation. Simon Guerin's was so close on yesterday's stage. He'll try again today.
We're looking at some serious speed here this afternoon. 30 kilometres to go. That's 18 miles left to go to the finish. 1 minute and 12 seconds. We're in the very heart now of the Département of the Aveyron. And just by the way, out of interest, there were originally 83 départements of France created just after the French Revolution in 1790. And today there are 101 scattered across the globe, because they actually have some French departments as far away as Nouvelle-Calédonie and the l'Île de la Réunion in the Indian Ocean.
And they've also added, after World War II, a couple of départements in the far eastern corner of the country that was formerly Germany.
Exactly. Alsace-Lorraine has moved across a number of times throughout its history. As we look now at this 5-man leading group, we can see this 5-man leader. They continue to work hard, but Bob, they can't really have much of a chance because there's too many strong teams at the front today who have an interest in pulling them back.
You need a huge lead to hold off a charging peloton that's highly motivated. The breakaway was never allowed that 9-10 minutes that generally you need to have to hold off the pack, but they did have a lot to ride for throughout the day, especially the King of the Mountains points, and that is Luis Mate from the Cofidis squad. Cofidis, not a lot to crow about so far in this season, but Luis Mate, if everything stays the same, will have the King of the Mountains jersey at the end of today's stage.
Yes, he would like to hope that he can survive a little bit closer towards the finish, because there are 2 third category climbs inside of the last 15 kilometres of the race. Somehow, I think, though, Bob, as we look here at 20 28.5 kilometres to go to the finish. We're looking now at about 17 miles of racing left. It's just about to tickle that 1 minute margin. And here is the man we've been talking about, Luis Angel Mate, the rider from Spain, rides for the French squad Cofidis, and a winner 2 years ago of one of the stages in that Argentinian race, the Tour of San Luis, and a stage last year not too far away from here in the Route du Sud.
Route du Sud, he came up with the goods with the stage win in a similar situation, a long breakaway throughout the day. In that circumstance, they stayed away to the finish line, and he got himself a great little stage win. That's why you go in the breakaway. If you're not a sprinter or an overall contender, this is the only way to be successful in a bike race, and that's for these riders what the early season is all about.
It's all about trying to get an early season victory for the team to open up the team's bank account, if you like. As we look at these 5 leaders now, they're starting to head a little bit closer towards the finishing town of Rodez. And when they start to get to the outskirts of Rodez, there are 2 nasty little climbs, and you can start to see them building on the horizon.
Head Sweats, the world leader in performance headwear, is a proud sponsor of the Epic Cycle. Check out our new Super Duty collection featuring superior moisture management and perspiration technology. Use the code PARINICE at headsweats.com and receive 30% off your next online purchase on all Head Sweats headwear. Restrictions apply.
Looking down here on the small town of Massillac-Vallon, that's the last town that the riders will go through before they start to climb up to the plateau. And on top of that plateau is situated the finishing town of Rodez. And it seems to be one plateau too far for a certain Luis Angel Mate, Bob, because he's gone off the back end of this group. Got himself maximum points today, but probably I think he's trying to conserve energy because he knows tomorrow, with the big tough stage that we're lining up for tomorrow, he could consolidate his lead in that King of the Mountains classification.
Rather curious that Luis Mate would voluntarily drop off this breakaway. He's in danger of losing his lead in that King of the Mountains competition. We'll have to see if he can get back into the breakaway tomorrow and perhaps get some more points for that jersey, but he might not have it at the end of today's stage.
He may well not, but there's a lot of teams now thinking about the individual stage victory here this afternoon. It's a very tough run-in towards the finishing line in Rodez. To begin with, Bob, we've got that climb, the climb which is just coming up right on the horizon, the Côte de Aubert-le-Cré. That's a climb of 4.5 kilometres, 2.5 miles of racing. But more importantly, I think that climb on the run into the outskirts of Rodez, the Côte de Bourron, that is about a 7% climb. That's going to be a rather sticky one. Good launch pad.
Very good launch pad. Steep, brutal. If you can accelerate at that point after a long, hard day in the saddle, good chance to win.
That's why you can now see all of the teams, all the same coloured jerseys getting together, getting that organisation of their squads. The pale blue jerseys there in the middle of the peloton. That, of course, is Omega Pharma Quick-Step. At the back of that line, the small rider, that's Levi Leipheimer. And I was actually talking to his team manager, Brian Home, this morning just before the start. And Levi, he said, has brought the team to a much higher level with his professionalism. The amazing thing, he says, we don't have to look after Levi. He can go home to the United States, go back to Santa Rosa, get himself trained and come back to a race to be race fit and ready to go.
Luis Mate being caught, Levi Leipheimer tucked in the wheel. He's on a wheel of Tom Bonin, and for Levi to sit on that wheel, that is a great aerodynamic advantage.
It certainly is. We look at the gap now, though, and I think there's the explanation, Bob, as to why Luis Angel Mate sat up and went back to the main field, because that gap is now down to a mere 35 seconds. Putting that into mileage, that's around about 500 yards is the difference between the peloton and the remaining 4 survivors.
Lamprey on the front, and other teams moving into position, not to chase perhaps, but to keep their team leaders out of danger and up in the front of the peloton. We see Sky on the left-hand side of the peloton and Bradley Wiggins tucked in. His 2 teammates, Christian Knies is one of them, doing the work. This is what we call doing the work, working for your leader. That means going to the front and taking the brunt of the aerodynamic wind coming into your chest so your leader doesn't have to do that.
Looking over the shoulders, I just noticed Danny Pate, the American rider on Team Sky. We talked about having 6 American riders at the start of Paris-Nice. Well, we're down to 5 now with that non-start this morning by Taylor Phinney, not able to start because of an intestinal problem, gastroenteritis. He actually was very, very sad to abandon the race, wasn't he, Bob? He said it's something that he does not like to do.
Oh, it's a serious letdown emotionally after months and years of training to have to drop out of any stage race and go home you leave your teammates there to ply their trade by themselves, and it's always sad when you look down the dinner table and there's one or more missing places.
Yeah, you're just seeing the red car going by there. That's a car that contains the race referee. That's always also a very bad psychological moment for a breakaway, because as you start to see the cars coming by, as you start to see the motorbikes going by, you know that the writing is on the wall. And the writing on the wall this afternoon is, you guys, you're about to get caught.
Just around the corner is the peloton, all together still chasing down our 4 men in front. They might get to the next King of the Mountain points to contest that. If not, watch for Thomas de Gent to come out of the pack. He was leading that competition at the start of the day. He missed a breakaway. And there's a big crash right in the middle of the field.
Well, that was right in the middle of the field, as you say that, and it looks to me as if Ivan Basso has gone down once again. He really is not having a lot of fun. Somebody's gone down a lot harder in the middle there as well, but one of the riders from Sorsujazun. Also, that looks very much to me as if that's David Arroyo, the rider from Movistar. He's in the dark blue jersey there. Let's have a look at that again.
Right here, just about halfway through the field, touch of wheels, a moment of inattention, and when you are one of the riders trying to win Paris-Nice, you cannot sit that far back. You will be caught up in these inevitable crashes.
Well, it's taken a while for the mechanic to get that one sorted out, but because of the speed of the main field, I would expect David Arroyo to get himself back into the peloton. Let's have a look at it from a different angle here and see exactly how that happened.
Big pile up right there on the white line in the middle of the road. Does not happen very often. Usually it's obstacles or spontaneous things that leap out from the side of the road like spectators that cause those big crashes, and that was just a question of riders not paying attention at the wrong moment.
Well, David Arroyo's taken his time there. He's walked back down to the team car, Bob, to take on board a brand new bike. So obviously that machine of his was rather nastily damaged. Arroyo, a very good climber when it comes to the latter part of this year's Paris-Nice. I tell you what, there's still an awful lot of very hard stages to come.
Yes, he's one of the best climbers on the Movistar team, and it will be his team captain Alejandro Valverde that might need to depend on Arroyo throughout the rest of Paris-Nice. He's a stage winner in the Vuelta, and apart from Valverde, perhaps the best climber on that Movistar squad.
Yes, he's certainly going to need him, because there are a lot of hard stages left in this year's Paris-Nice. Looking down there, you can see they're just around the corner. It's all over bar the shouting here this afternoon. 12 seconds, it's a lot less than that. These riders now, I think, will raise the white flag of surrender and very shortly find themselves in the company of the main field that they haven't seen since the 6th kilometre of today's stage. And they were the 5 men who originally went out to build up that massive advantage of 5 minutes and 20 seconds. But today, as we start to look at the front end of the peloton, Bob, there's a lot of teams are thinking about the stage victory, and I wonder if those climbs down towards the end are going to be that little bit too hard for a certain Tom Boner, because he looks to be riding like the sort of man maybe thinking about another victory.
Well, Omega Quickstep having a couple of cards to play in the overall standings and perhaps another stage win. Sylvain Chavanel, he has a good chance to move into that yellow jersey of race leader if he can get a little bit of a gap and get that time bonus at the finish line for Sylvain Chavanel, and also Levi Leipheimer starting the stage in 2nd overall.
So it's all over now, bar the shouting, as Bradley Wiggins in the yellow jersey moves to the front end of the main field. He knows there's going to be an awful lot of organisation now as we charge into Rodez. Well, I tell you what, Bob, talk about soccer, talk about football, as I call it. I tell you one thing, Thor Hushovd probably wishes he could go onto the substitute bench this afternoon, because he's riding at the back end of the main field, and this, to me, is not a good sign for the upcoming classic season.
Well, Thor Hushovd hoping to win Paris-Roubaix. He won the stage in the Tour de France over the cobblestones. He would love to win Paris-Roubaix, but so far, it's not been a great season for Thor Hushovd. He's struggled a lot. He's been struggling mightily here in Paris-Nice, and Thor Hushovd being dropped off the back. He'll hope for better things in the classics. The climbs obviously are not his specialty, but if we think back to last summer's Tour de France, he got over those pretty well.
Well, he laid down the foundations of his victory in the green jersey points competition in the couple of years ago in the Tour de France in the mountains, with a massive breakaway on one of the big Pyrenean stages. So he knows how to climb. I think this is an indication that his form, it's not quite right, but he also at the start of this event, Bob, did complain with a little bit of an intestinal problem, and riding a race like Paris-Nice is not the best way to ride yourself back into good health.
Most certainly is not, but he'll hope he'll get some good fitness for the weeks racing here on the very tough roads of Paris-Nice. Twisting, turning, hilly roads. If you're not a climber and you're not having a good day, it makes for a long day of racing.
Well, it looks to me as if Tom Bonin is slipping backwards as well here now, Bob. So obviously not a very good prediction for a sprint finish here this afternoon. This climb, as explained to me by Sean Yates, is a very difficult climb, and it's causing a great amount of difficulty for many riders. 151 there, by the way. That's Christophe Lemavella, regarded as the leader of Garmin Barracuda here at Paris-Nice. He had a very nasty crash on the opening road stage, and in fact he finished 15 minutes behind. He was in last place overall at one stage in Paris-Nice, but in fact he's moved himself up now, Bob, to 170th, and he's got 2 riders behind him, so a lowly position for him in this race.
And one of them has already dropped out of Paris-Nice, so Christophe Lemavella, because of that savage crash he had in the crosswinds of stage number 2, still struggling in Paris-Nice.
Yes, but just noticing the tricolor of France at the front, Sylvain Chavanel, now one of the joint leaders of Omega Pharma Quick-Stop with Levi Leipheimer. I would say today is an ideal opportunity for a man like Sylvain Chavanel, Bob, to make one of those crafty little moves down towards the end.
Well, Sylvain Chavanel on the Omega Quick-Step squad, the most dominant team in professional cycling so far this year. Already 21 wins on the season, and Tom Bonin already a stage winner in Paris-Nice.
Yes, that's Tom Bonin. His numbers almost getting ripped off there, but Bonin trying to fine-tune his form for the one-day classics. And again, talking to his manager Brian Home, he's actually been working with Tom Bonin since way back in November to get his mind ready for this year's season, to get him body ready for this year's season, and he could be laying down the foundations here for a good victory in Milano San Remo. Look at that. I think he's just riding well within himself this afternoon. Now, Tom?
Tom will pedal on to the finish line. He'll probably get with Thor Hushoff, who was dropped from the peloton just before Tom Bonin. The sprinters will ride together to the finish line, fight another day, and continue to build their fitness with the classics on the horizon to come in a few weeks' time.
Well, if you just look at this squad, this is a very well-drilled squad. I had a long time talking with Brian Home this morning, and Brian Home obviously was the team manager last year with HTC High Road, HTC Columbia, whatever form you want to know them as. But he's moved across to an older team because the team manager, Patrick Lefebvre, has managed this team under many forms. It was MAP A squad. Now it's become Omega Pharma Quick-Step. He's been the manager of this team since 1983, and they were, Bob, at one time really regarded as pretty old school.
They had a lot of old thinking on the team, did things in the traditional way, and Levi Leipheimer was one of the riders to motivate them to come into the modern era of cycling and try scientific training, a little bit change in the diet, a number of things that riders do commonly nowadays. But Quick-Step, that was a team previously, has been reluctant to adopt until this year, and it's been very successful.
It's been exceptionally successful, as you said, Bob, with 21 victories at Arrière de la Course. You don't have to understand that very quickly to know that is the back end of the bike race, and that, of course, was Ivan Basso slipping away from the main field once again here this afternoon. He, too, probably looking at Paris-Nice to fine-tune his form for a good attack at the Giro d'Italia later on in the year. Magnificent aqueduct that we're looking down there at the main field, picking their way through this area of Aveyron. And by the way, if you like knives, and I do like knives, and I collect knives, Aveyron, the region we're going through here at the moment, Bob, is the home of the very famous L'Aiguillole knife of France, one of the most famous knives that they produce.
And also they produce an exceptional corkscrew. So if you have some wine bottles at home, try to find a L'Aiguillole corkscrew with a knife on it, and you will be enjoying your wine presently.
Right, there's Damiano Cunego. We've talked an awful lot about him. You can spot him in the pink and blue jersey, but more easily that fluorescent yellow bike. There's only 2 riders on that squad have the fluorescent bike, Damiano Cunego, and the other one, of course, Alessandro Patacchi.
Patacchi, the tall sprinter on those Villiers Triestina bikes. A distinctive look to Cunego and Patacchi's bike. Absolutely gorgeous, and of course, very efficient. 15 pounds plus change. That's the limit that the UCI has set for all bicycles in an open stage race in professional cycling. But I think they could be considerably lighter and still have the integrity needed to carry these riders day in and day out in the hardest bike races on earth.
Oh, it's a hard ride now in this Paris-Nice, the 4th stage here, 178 kilometers, having left Brive-la-Gaillarde behind this morning. We're now not too far away from the outskirts of Rodez. And again, the organization, Bob, of this race being a little bit nasty because we circumnavigate Rodez. If you look up to the top of the climbs, from the top of the climbs, you can almost see Rodez. We go around in a nasty little circuit, just I think to find up these little climbs to try and break the race up. 1 kilometer to go to the summit of the climb, and you may have noticed the man you talked about, Thomas de Kent, in the polka dot jersey, he's moved up to the front end of the pack.
4 points in the top, bring him a little bit closer to the leader, Mate, who was in the early breakaway and got a lot of points out on the course. But Thomas de Kent, I think, is very serious about that King of the Mountains jersey. He won a stage in last year's Paris-Nice. He led the race for 3 days, and there he is right in the front of the peloton on the left-hand side of your screen in the polka dot mascot jersey.
Well, there are 4 points available at the top of this climb. It's a third category climb, and yes, Thomas de Gent at the end of yesterday's stage had 6 points. He's not really, I don't think, going to be a major threat to the Spanish leader of this competition, Mate, at the moment, but Thomas de Gent is one of those riders who will chip away at this competition every day. A few points here, a few points there, because it's the man who wears the jersey on the final day who will be the overall winner.
And they're doing a big lead out for Thomas de Gent on this King of the Mountain sprint. They have one more on today's stage. He'll get a little bit closer, but he may not, like you said, get the maximum points, but he has got a lot of climbing left in Paris-Nice the rest of the week.
Well, as a quick reminder here, let's just have a look. Luis Angel Mate has amassed 18 points here this afternoon. Thomas de Gent is not getting challenged at all here. He's in third place. He's dropped down into third place currently. This 4 points at the top here will give him a total of 10 if he's going to get it, and I don't think anyone's going to challenge him at all, and that, Bob, will put him back in the running.
Back in the running for Thomas de Gent, trying to get something out of Paris-Nice. Obviously not a time trialing superstar. He's very good at the discipline, but he did not win the opening time trial on the stage. That went to Gustav Larsson, which maybe not so bad because he's his own teammate.
Well, he certainly is. I have to say, Thomas de Gent, I've watched him since the very start of this season in the Santos Tour Down Under. He was doing a very similar move. Every time they went to the big climbs in South Australia, he popped out of the main field, got himself a few points, went back. At the end of the day, he didn't win that competition, but he was very, very closely in second place.
14.3 kilometers, just over 8 miles left in the bike race. Team Sky keeping Bradley Wiggins not taking any chances. He's about third wheel right there in the yellow jersey, right at the tip of the spear of the peloton. That's where you need to stay out of trouble in the finale of these bike races. They can turn on a dime and they can change from perfect to tragic in just the blink of an eye.
The blink of an eye, but for Thomas de Gent, that's 4 more points in the bag for him while we continue on our road towards Rodez. Welcome back. The Epic Cycle Series presented by Michelob Ultra. I'm Paul Sherwin. Alongside me, Bob Roll. Bob, 13.5 kilometers ago. Look how nervous Damiano Cunego is there on the lime green bike. I think he's up for the win this afternoon.
Damiano Cunego is a perfect stage for his characteristics as a bike racer. It's very lumpy, very hilly with an exciting finish. He has a great kick to the line when he smells a victory in the air.
Well, there are a lot of guys who will think this is their kind of finish. Alejandro Valverde. There we can see the Cathedral of Notre Dame in the distance, but for the riders, they've still got 8 miles before they're going to get there and finish in the shadows of that famous cathedral. As we now look at the peloton, we're starting to say Alejandro Valverde. He will like his chances of a victory today, Bob, with that very nasty 8% climb just on the run in towards the finish line. Simon Gerrans is a man who's likely to be up there again as well. And also, we're not going to discount Luis Leon Sanchez, who I think his team have been trying to push to the front of the peloton this afternoon.
A flatter finish. Yesterday's finish favored Valverde because it did finish at the top of a climb. The climbs on the road before that are a little bit steeper perhaps, but it does flatten out. That gives the advantage to a rider like Damiano Cunego or Luis Leon Sanchez from Alejandro Valverde. Valverde promises, though, to fight all the way to the end, and there are time bonuses up for grabs at the finish line. If Levi Leipheimer was able to get the 10-second stage win time bonus, he would take the jersey away from Bradley Wiggins, assuming Bradley did not get any time points. Bradley Wiggins, he's a great cyclist all around. Maybe a sprint is his only thing he is not one of the best in the world at.
But he is very good at riding at the front end of the peloton. He's been very sensible. That's Rigoberto Urán there, just looking over his shoulder, making sure that the yellow jersey is at the front of the pack. There is the green jersey, Bob. Alejandro Valverde, we'd said, very attentive, keeping at the front end of the peloton, thinking about the running towards the finish. But this is going to be a very unpredictable race. We've still got one man off the front. Let's not forget, and here he is, Thomas de Gent. He's got a 15-second advantage. You know, he rose to prominence last year in Paris-Nice, and he's turning out to be a very crafty bike rider.
This is a very impressive ride by Thomas de Gent. He just noodled off the front. Everybody knew that he would go for the King of the Mountain points, but then they gave him a little bit too much of a gap, and he's pressing on his advantage, hoping perhaps to get to the next King of the Mountain points and get maximum points there. But staying away to the end, well, that would be an absolutely spectacular effort.
I think a very difficult thing to do. The Bleu Blanc Rouge, the red, white and blue champion of France, Sylvain Chavanel at the front end of the peloton here. I don't think he's doing too much work there, Bob. He's just keeping himself out of danger. He, I think, could be the man to look out for here this afternoon. As we mentioned the yellow jersey on the shoulders here of Bradley Wiggins. We've mentioned the green jersey on the shoulders today of Alejandro Valverde. We haven't mentioned the white jersey because we haven't seen him. TJ Van Garderen, the American rider who is well up in third place in the overall standings. probably riding a very sensible tactical race, Bob. We're not seeing him. He's not using too much energy. He's just waiting for the moment when he feels that he can pounce.
Well, that is the ideal way to go through a stage race. Never be seen, never be heard from until the most difficult and critical moments. Obviously, the time trial is one of those times, but TJ Van Garderen, he stayed out of trouble. He stayed out of the headlines. He stayed in third place in the overall standings, and so far he's ridden a perfect Paris-Nice.
Question mark, Bob. Why are Team Sky actually setting the pacemaking here at the front? They're not trying to win the stage here this afternoon. That's Geraint Thomas, the Welshman there. I would have to say a great star for the future. He's decided not to ride the Tour de France this year. He's going to bank everything on the Olympic Games in 2012 as we start to see. Because whenever we race in France, we get into the outskirts of a town, there's traffic furniture. It's very, very dodgy, isn't it?
And I think you've just answered why Team Sky would come to the front in this circumstance. Just 8.8 kilometers to go, just over 5 miles. Keep Bradley Wiggins in that yellow jersey, out of trouble, up at the front of the race. We see just a few kilometers ago what happens, even if you're halfway back, a couple of riders not paying attention touch wheels, 5 men went down immediately. Bradley Wiggins trying to avoid that with the help of his teammates.
Right, 8.7 kilometers, 5 miles of racing. Thomas de Gent is hoping that he can pick up a few more points, because a little bit further down the road, Bob, there is another King of the Mountains point, the last one of the day. Now, if he survives up until that point, he's going to put himself right back in the running.
Right back in the running for the King of the Mountain points. If he keeps this advantage, he has an outside chance to stay away till the end of the stage. But we saw what happens when the big stars of the sport winded up for the finish line. Sergei Lagoutin dangling off the front, but once the big stars hit the afterburners, they caught him, passed him, and it was Alejandro Valverde, one of the best at uphill finishes, to win the stage.
Well, lining up onto the wheel of the yellow jersey there, you might just caught a glimpse of Sylvain Chavanel, but also Levi Leipheimer. Leipheimer has said, Bob, he's going to sit back in this race and stay as close as he can to Bradley Wiggins, as close as he can to all of the other contenders, and lay it all down on the line when we come to the mountaintop time trial to finish on the slope of the Col d'Ez. What a showdown that's going to be on Sunday.
That is going to be a great showdown. Bradley Wiggins sharing the sentiments of Levi Leipheimer. He knows that he has to be at his best in that final uphill time trial of the Col d'Ez if he's going to win the yellow jersey eventually at the end of Paris-Nice.
Well, I'd have to say, if we were to take the race as it is for the moment, from here and start at the Col d'Ez, you could not decide who is going to be the winner, because only 36 seconds separates the top 10 riders in the overall standings, and only 6 seconds separates Levi Leipheimer away from the yellow jersey. I would think that he actually doesn't want to get that yellow jersey. He would very happily go into that final time trial, Bob, in second or third place, still looking for a couple of seconds.
Yes, a tall order here for Thomas Gent. Bit of a sticky wicket for Thomas Gent. Does he hold off? Does he ease up a little bit, go back in the field, and then re-accelerate when we get close to the next King of the Mountain? Or does he try to keep staying off the front and get maximum points that way? Looks like so far he's decided to stay off the front, but that might not be for very much longer.
Well, some riders here have decided that they're not going to give him the chance of staying off the front up until the next climb of the day, because the acceleration's now starting to come thick and fast. This run into the finish, Bob, in Rodez is ideal for a little breakaway to sneak off the front end of the peloton, especially if somebody all of a sudden decides we don't want to control the pack anymore.
Euskaltel rider along with Cofidis going off the front. A Sauer rider as well, chasing down Thomas de Gent. 3 men chasing de Gent. That might be David Moncoutier, the man in the red jersey. The Mercurio rider from the Cofidis squad, stage winner in the Tour de France, has yet to taste victory in 2012, but perhaps looking for a stage win today.
Well, Thomas de Gent is going to have a very difficult time to survive up until that final climb of the day, because the Côte de Bourrin comes at just 2 kilometers to go to the finish. I think that, Bob, is where we're going to see the fireworks. I think this whole race is going to come back together, and we'll see somebody like a Valverde, a Simon Gerrans, or someone like that leap out of the pack on that nasty little climb.
And just leaping out of the pack then was Gianpaolo Caruso, the rider from the Katusha squad, an Italian man joining the 3 that had just broken away. So 4 chasing 1, right in front of the whole main field, getting lined up now, just 7 kilometers to the finish line for the finale of today's bike race.
Well, these are phenomenal racing roads. A little glimpse over the shoulder. Thomas de Gent can feel the reinforcements coming. He'll probably lift up a fraction of his pedaling rate now, let those 4 riders catch him, and then start to work with them again. But you could throw a blanket over the whole of this race here this afternoon. It's almost coming back together.
Just about back together now. the peloton, chasing hard on this fault flat here to get on top of this little plateau. A bit of a descent before the last king of the mountain points, and then flat to the finish line in Rodez. Absolutely gorgeous countryside. We've visited Rodez many times during the Tour de France, and it's much greener in the summertime conditions.
It certainly is, I have to say, but this is the first time that Paris-Nice has actually visited Rodez. As we look over the shoulders, it's a Gruppo Compacto, as they're probably saying in Tirreno Adriatico, Bob, on the other side of the continent. In fact, all back together.
All back together. Cofidis rider trying to get off the front, but Garmin now has come to the fore. Garmin leading the chase now, and that is a good effort by the men from the Garmin squad trying to catch the lone leader. Now it's all back together, and there's a king of the mountain points just coming up.
Now then, Garmin Barracuda, what about the chances of a certain Heinrich Hausler? I don't think he's been in a crash today, but he's had so many crashes since the start of this season. If he can stay upright, he'll start to get back into his winning ways. Oh, there's a crash. Look at that. That, in fact, is Simon Gerrans who's gone down there. That is the champion of Australia there. He went down, again, one of those nasty little traffic circles.
Second place on yesterday's stage, hoping to go one better today. That crash will probably eliminate his chances from winning the stage. Very slow to get up. The peloton, it's a wide, seething mass of hungry bike racers, and they go from a wide road, turn hard left, and there's a traffic island. A lot of times, there is absolutely nothing you can do, and you hit the ground.
Once you hit the ground, you don't very often get back into the bike race here this afternoon, and a pity really, because Matty White had said that Simon Gerrans was looking for a victory in this next couple of days. Matty White, the team manager of the Green Edge cycling team. So as we see the Australian champion off the back end of the main field, there's a lot of changes coming to the front end of the peloton, as now Team Movistar are trying to set something up for their man Alejandro Valverde, maybe win number 2. It's full-on action now at 5 kilometers to go to the finish. 3.1 miles of racing. The lime green helmets there are Movistar. They're trying to set the victory up for their man Alejandro Valverde here this afternoon. But look at all the men, Bob, queuing up behind him. Behind Valverde, you've got Chavanel. You've got the yellow jersey of Bradley Wiggins. A little bit further back, you've got Levi Leipheimer. They are all over this road.
Mad scramble here at the front of the peloton. Movistar in the blue jerseys with the green helmets leading. Valverde in the green jersey just on the shoulder there of his teammates. Already a stage winner yesterday, and looking for more in Rodez on today's stage of Paris-Nice.
Garmin Barracuda, watch out. I just saw Heinrich Hausler being moved up to the front end of the main field by one of his teammates there, and that is Hausler now slotting very nicely into 6th position. Oh, well, getting squashed into 6th position by Gutierrez, the champion of Spain. He's number 4 in the line there. He's sitting on the wheel of Alejandro Valverde. They've got a two-pronged attack there, haven't they, Movistar? They've got their sprinter Rojas, or they've got Alejandro Valverde.
If Rojas can get over that last climb, he has a great chance for the stage win. A lot of the sprinters already blown out the back, including Bonin and Hushov, all to play for in Paris-Nice with just under 4 kilometers to the finish line.
But look at all these leaders always moving up to the front. If they slide down to 15th or 20th position, they battle to get themselves up into the top 10, because they realize there's a lot of traffic furniture out on the roads of Rodez here this afternoon. Good job by the policeman there. I wouldn't like to stand in the middle of the road with 150 professional bike riders charging at you at 40 miles an hour.
Charging is the right word. Flat out for the finish line inside of 4Ks. 3.5 kilometers to go, just about 2 miles. Great job by Movistar, tasting success yesterday. Alejandro Valverde maybe a little bit worrying. Just one teammate left in the front, but right on his wheel, JJ Rojas on the wheel of Valverde. Maybe they're going to play for Rojas on today's stage.
Talk about putting the hammer down this afternoon. Levi Leipheimer over on the right-hand side there. In fact, he's backing off a fraction there. He doesn't work. Oh, well, they've all gone the wrong way. This is a disaster here this afternoon. It really is quite dramatic. As they went into that corner, all of a sudden there was no exit, and somebody's gone into somebody's front garden, I think.
The baby carriage swung out of the way just at the right moment. Levi Leipheimer slowing way down, has to go over the traffic island. Riders all over the place, a very dangerous traffic circle just there.
But Bradley Wiggins, there he is, yellow jersey on his shoulders, riding Bob first 5, 6 positions all of the time, making sure that he doesn't get caught out in any of these silly splits on the run in towards the finish, because let's not forget, Wiggins only leads this race by 6 seconds ahead of Levi Leipheimer.
Wiggins taking the initiative now. No teammates just in front of him. If you're Sky, you want one guy to get up there, try to guide Bradley Wiggins to the finish line, but so far he's managing to do that by himself. But Valverde putting the pressure on Rojas on the front, attacking now perhaps for the yellow jersey as early as stage 4 for Alejandro Valverde.
Well, Rojas has now decided, no, it's not for me here this afternoon. I'm going to take Valverde right the way to the line if I can. This is the nasty bit of the climb here, Bob. At 2 kilometers to go, they go over the summit of this climb, and look at the way it is stretching out the main field. This is the moment when you've got to keep calm if you're the yellow jersey. You've got to keep your eyes about you, keep your wits about you, look over and see how all the other riders are in this bike race here this afternoon.
Quick look at Andreas Kloden moving up on the outside there. First look at Andreas Kloden throughout today's racing, moving into position now. Also Levi Leipheimer and Sylvain Chavanel tucked in right at the front of the race.
Well, this is a very interesting move at the Tête de la Course, the head of the bike race, because Andreas Kloden has come out of that pack like a scalded cat, and there's absolutely no reaction at all from the Spaniards.
Stage winner in last year's Paris-Nice, Andreas Kloden, taking this moment to put down a huge attack, going flat out now. He's going to get to the top of the climb in just a couple of 100 meters and inside of 2Ks to the finish.
Well, he won a stage, as you said, last year. Bobby finished second overall, and all of a sudden they've put the men from Movistar on the back foot here. They're on the defensive this afternoon. This man is not going to rock the foundations of the top of the overall standings because he lost too much time in the crosswinds on the opening road stage. But what a great move by him. Crafty move by one of the oldest bike riders in the field.
Absolutely spectacular time trialist is Andreas Kloden. His teammate Frank Schleck being dropped. You don't oftentimes see that. One rider going off the front on the same team, one rider going off the back. But Kloden, he can time trial, he can climb, he wants to get some success after the disappointment from stage 2 of missing out on that split in the field where 21 men got a 2.5 minute advantage over the peloton.
Yeah, but Bob, let's just try and put this into perspective a fraction here. As we see Kloden getting himself points there ahead of Rojas and Valverde, that's not really important. He goes under the final kilometer. It's such a difficult move to survive at speeds like this in the final kilometers of a bike race.
The peloton regrouping now, still a pretty big group. Lamprey riders coming to the front. That might spell doom for this man, Andreas Kloden, but he struck out on his own about 800 meters, or just about half of the length of a football field to the finish line for Andreas Kloden.
Well, it's a great move by him, but now he's just got to get his head concentrated. Keep looking at the front wheel in front of him. He's still got about a 50-meter advantage, but now it's Lamprey getting themselves organized, and in fact it's Damiano Cunego himself who's doing the pacemaking at the front, so they've obviously turned the books around here. They may well be looking at one of the sprinters on their squad. The other sprinters on their squad, as Valverde is still stuck in the middle. They're all over the road now, Bob. I think they're waiting for the moment to pounce. This is an awful, interminable finishing straight.
Any rider besides Andreas Kloden, the assumption would be that he would be caught. Even Kloden cannot resist the acceleration from the peloton.
Oh, and up into second place there. That looks like Gregor Bole, the rider there from Team Lamprey, and he's in second position now as he now starts to get challenged as well. They are all over the front end of this bike race now. Alejandro Valverde still tucked in there, slipping a bit further forward as well in the yellow jersey. Bradley Wiggins, now the acceleration coming, and it looks to me as if there's a rider from Team Sky getting the acceleration now. That could be Rigoberto Urán, and he's trying to make sure he's looking after Bradley Wiggins. Wiggins in a 5th or 6th position. That's Bole there in the white jersey. They're all lining up behind him, and all of a sudden Alejandro Valverde has completely disappeared from the front end of the bike race here this afternoon. Now we've got another acceleration coming. This is the riders from Team Lotto coming out of the pack now. This is Meersman. Gianni Meersman is going to come up to the line, and he gets it on the line at Brive-la-Gaillarde to Rodez, a Team Lotto. We have not even talked about them much throughout the whole of today's stage, and bang, there they come up with the victory. Valverde swamped in the final few meters, and just at the back of the group there, that's Bole on the left-hand side, but Gianni Meersman, formerly a rider on the Discovery squad a couple of years ago, bang, and what a great victory for him.
He's had a win already this season, but that is a great stage win for Gianni Meersman here in Paris-Nice, stage number 4 on the streets of Rodez, and you can see what kind of effort he put in to win that stage. He's absolutely exhausted at the end, can't even stand up.
Well, it's very strange, Bob, to see him riding here in the Lotto jersey because he was so very, very close to be riding for the new Radio Shack Nissan squad this season. He actually rode for Discovery Channel a couple of years ago, and Johan Brunel wanted to bring him on board, but with the amalgamation of those two big teams, he got caught out.
Well, he has 2 wins already on the season, but that was absolutely brilliant. Patience and timing and sprint speed power saved the day for Johnny Mearsman. He came out of the pack at the very last moment. Greg Abole had a great lead out from his teammates, but Johnny Mearsman had a great shot at the finish line. That is Bole. He makes his move for the finish line. About 150 meters to go. Mearsman in 4th now. He's starting to make his move now. Bole just trying to survive to the finish line. Quite can't get there. Lactic acid now. He's drowning. And Mearsman just comes around at the last moment to get the better of Greg Abole and the stage win. Brilliant win for the man from Belgium.
Well-timed victory there. So let's have confirmation. Gianni Mearsman getting himself the win ahead of Greg Abole. Louis Vistre of Vacansoleil up there in 3rd place, and Jonathan Hiver of Sojerzun in 5th place. A little bit further down, Nicholas Roach. I didn't see him in the sprint, but he was in 7th place. Valverde fading in the end there to 8th place. And Bradley Wiggins, sensible, always up there inside of the top 10.
Hot climb to the finish for Bradley Wiggins, and a very nice moment to cool down. Not easy to get a trainer back there, but you got to do everything it takes to win these races.
Every little bit counts if you want to win a bike race like Paris-Nice. Every little bit counts when you want to be a top professional bike rider. We'll take a break. When we come back, an interview with the winner and the standings. Well, looking down on the Cathedral of Notre Dame de Rodez as we look down into the finishing straight, here is the arrival of the unfortunate Australian national champion, Simon Gerrans. I'd have had him as a tip for a possible victory this afternoon, Bob.
A little too far back in the run into the finishing town, got caught out in a corner when it vanished in front of him. Hard left hand, the whole peloton spread across the road, riding nice and easy. You turn left and there's a traffic island, you go down, you got to stay at the front.
Well, I remember this young rider back in 2007 winning a stage of the Tour of Georgia, and now he's got himself a stage victory here at Paris-Nice. Gianni Mearsman, he's the winner of stage 4, his 2nd win of 2012.
Well, you know, a lot of times when you are left off of a roster, as he was done when Radio Shack and Leopard Trek merged, you have a little extra motivation when you get into the season. Already two big wins so far this year for Johnny Mearsman.
Funny old sport, the sport of professional cycling, isn't it, Bob? Because you can go through almost a whole stage and name almost every bike rider in the peloton. The one man you don't mention, he comes out of the pack right at the very end to cut the line in 1st place. And on this occasion, it was Gianni Mearsman, and it was only in the last few microseconds of the event that he crossed the line to get himself that victory. And I suppose that well-timed performance by Gianni Mearsman is why today we're going to award him with the Ride of the Day, presented by Michelob Ultra.
As they say, timing is everything, and that is predicated on patience. You add a little bit of power into the equation. When you have all 3, you get a brilliant stage win, as Johnny Mearsman has just done, hitting the line in front of Greg Abole. Brilliant stage win. Also, when you put all 3 together, sometimes you're a little bit exhausted.
You certainly are, and that's why today our man who gets the Ride of the Day, presented by Michelob Ultra, is, of course, Gianni Mearsman. So no change in the overall standings. The British national road racing champion climbs onto the top step of the podium once again. He seems to be getting very used to this, Bob. Bradley Wiggins.
Absolutely challenging final for Bradley Wiggins. He had to navigate himself through the last couple of kilometers, but he did a great job to stay out of trouble. Wild and woolly finale with all that traffic furniture. Riders going all over the place on today's stage. Bradley Wiggins staying out of trouble. His team didn't have to do a whole lot of work throughout the day, but tomorrow they will be seriously tested.
Yes, I think they will, but I think the fact that he was finishing inside of the top 10 is a big indication that Bradley Wiggins has got the form, he's got the ability to ride in the right place in the main field, and he's riding with confidence and a very strong team around him. So as we see him on the top step of the podium, let's just have a reminder of what the overall classification looks like this afternoon, because still Bradley Wiggins leading by that 6 seconds ahead of Levi Leipheimer. Haven't even seen TJ Van Garderen for the last couple of days, but there he is, still in 3rd place in the overall standings ahead of Sylvain Chavanel. A bit further down, Alejandro Valverde is in 7th place, chased by his own teammate Jose Joaquim Rojas in 8th place, and Robert Kieselowski makes out the top 10. Looking a bit further down, there's some American names to look at. 28th place for Brent Bookwalter, looking for 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Further down, Danny Pate, 160th for Team Sky Pro Cycling. He's 31 minutes back, but let's hear what Gianni Mearsman has to say about his victory.
Yesterday you were in the final, and today you win. It's incredible. Yes, I was third. I felt pretty good. The team gave me a lot of confidence today. They work all day, and I'm really glad with this victory.
Everybody expected Alejandro Valverde to win today, but you showed that you're faster than him.
Today I was faster, but I'm just happy that I could win today. I'm very happy with this victory.
Can you explain us exactly how it happened in the last K?
We had a little roundabout with 300 meters to go. There was 5th, 6th position. I thought I was too far, but the finish was a little uphill. I was waiting until the right moment, and then I did my sprint.
Today you showed that you are in good shape this season.
I had a really good winter. No more complaints in my back or my left leg. That's over now. I'm healthy, so I feel good in this team.
Thanks a lot.
I tell you what, Bob, Gianni Meersman, professional since 2007. This could be a turning point in a career for him, a win in Paris-Nice.
Most certainly. Once you get that monkey off your back, you start to snowball with success. Gianni Meersman, 2 wins already on the season. Don't be surprised if he gets a lot more throughout the year.
Well, I think we'll see a lot more of him because, yes, it is a question of confidence, and the confidence was something that TJ Van Garderen seems to be aspiring to as well, Bob. We haven't seen him over the last couple of days, but that's not important because he still sits in 3rd place in the overall standings and leads the Best Young Rider competition.
He'll get another white jersey as leader of the under 25 years of age and under competition. He's had that since the beginning of Paris-Nice. He got that in the opening time trial. He's kept it all the way. He's kept himself out of trouble. His team, it was great to see them at the front of the peloton doing a lot of work to keep this man out of trouble. Still in contention and a great shot to actually win Paris-Nice at the end of the week's racing on Sunday.
Well, that's if he gets over the big mountaintop finish tomorrow, because it's going to be a very exciting day tomorrow, and it will be exciting all the way down to Nice, I have to think, this year in Paris-Nice, because we're going to have a little bit of suspense in the tail. So tomorrow, the Epic Cycle Series presented by Michelob Ultra continues with stage 5 of Paris-Nice. 6 climbs on the road and a nasty uphill finish. Tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time on the NBC Sports Network. And don't miss the launch of Major League Soccer. Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern, it's FC Dallas taking on the New York Red Bulls. And for the full cycling schedule, log on to our website at nbcsports.com. Congratulations to all of the winners here this afternoon. Until tomorrow and an exciting stage ahead. For Bob Roll, I'm Paul Showing saying bye for now.